November 12, 1942. Iron Bottom Sound, off Guadalcanal. 23:47 hours. The sea is black glass. A humid wind drifts across the decks of the Japanese battleship Hiei. Salt clings to every railing. Diesel fumes mix with the smell of sweat and cordite. Above, the sky is moonless, a curtain of tropical darkness so complete it swallows distance, depth, and fear like. Vice Admiral Hiroaki Abe stands rigid on the bridge wing, binoculars pressed to his eyes. He sees nothing. Visibility, he asks. 4,000 meters at best, Admiral, replies Captain Masao Nishida quietly. Lookouts scan the horizon. Human eyes. Night glasses. Training. Discipline. The Imperial Japanese Navy prides itself on night fighting. For decades, its officers studied darkness like an ally. Long-lance torpedoes, drilled crews, coordinated formations. This was Japan's edge. Radar? That was an experimental Western gadget. Unreliable. Imprecise. A machine that tried to replace instinct. Months earlier, in Tokyo, several senior officers had dismissed reports of American radar sets aboard cruisers and destroyers. Primitive, one had called them. Too inaccurate for real combat. Now, in the suffocating dark, that assumption hangs unspoken in the air. Below deck, sailors load 14-inch shells into Hiei's turrets. Each weighs over 1,400 pounds. Steel slides against steel with dull mechanical groans. Gun crews wait for visual confirmation. Silhouettes, muzzle flashes, shapes against starlight. They see nothing. Out beyond the black horizon, however, something else is watching. Aboard the American heavy cruiser USS San Francisco, Rear Admiral Daniel J. Callahan leans over a glowing screen inside the Combat Information Center. The room is dim, lit only by green radar sweeps and red battle lamps. Sweat drips from headphones and cables. A young radar operator adjusts the SG surface search radar, his voice tight but controlled. Contact. Bearing 085. Range 8,000 yards. Multiple returns. Unlike the Japanese bridge, this room does not rely on the human eye. The radar pulse sweeps outward at the speed of light, strikes steel hulls, and returns with cold precision. Blips form on the circular scope. Clear, steady, undeniable. They are right there, the operator whispers. Above deck, American sailors strain their eyes too, but they do not need to see. Open fire when ready, Callahan orders. 23:49. Without warning, the night explodes. American 8-inch guns erupt in synchronized flashes, guided not by sight, but by invisible radio waves. Shells arc through darkness toward ships whose crews still peer into empty blackness. On Hiei's bridge, Admiral Abe flinches as towering columns of water erupt nearby. A shell slams into the superstructure, shredding signal lines and spraying metal fragments across the deck. Ow! Someone shouts. Another impact. Then another. The Japanese formation, advancing to bombard Henderson Field on Guadalcanal, has sailed straight into radar-guided fire. For years, Japanese naval doctrine had emphasized optics, night training, torpedo tactics. And it had worked. Early victories in the Pacific proved it. In the Java Sea, at Savo Island, American ships had burned under Japanese night mastery. But this is different. In the American ships' combat information centers, officers track targets beyond visual range. Bearings are calculated. Range is corrected instantly. Gunnery officers adjust fire with mathematical precision. The darkness no longer belongs to Japan. On Hiei, communications falter. Steering is compromised. Fires spread. Admiral Abe realizes something impossible. The enemy can see them. A destroyer off the port side erupts in flame before its captain ever sights a target. Another attempts to launch torpedoes but is caught in radar-directed crossfire. Japanese gunners finally return fire, brilliant orange blossoms ripping open the sky. At close range, chaos becomes mutual slaughter. Ships pass within 3,000 yards, firing point-blank into one another. But the surprise has already shifted the balance. In the suffocating dark of Iron Bottom Sound, the Imperial Navy's greatest advantage, night, is slipping away. And somewhere, In an American CIC, a radar operator watches the glowing sweep rotate again, calm and steady, revealing every steel silhouette on the sea. December 8, 1941. Cam Ranh Bay, French Indochina. The wardroom of the heavy cruiser Chokai is thick with cigarette smoke. Charts of Southeast Asia lie spread across the table. Young officers lean over them, confident, almost impatient. News has just arrived. Pearl Harbor has been struck. The American Pacific Fleet is crippled. Commander Gunichi Mikawa allows himself a thin smile. For years, he says quietly, we have trained for night. Now we will show them what that means. And they do. In the opening months of the Pacific War, Japanese night tactics are devastating. Their Type 93 long-lance torpedoes, oxygen-fueled, long-ranged, nearly invisible in their wake, slice through Allied cruisers with terrifying efficiency. At the Battle of the Java Sea in February 1942, Allied formations collapse under coordinated torpedo attacks launched in darkness. Then comes August 9, 1942, the Battle of Savo Island. Allied cruisers patrol the waters north of Guadalcanal, confident in numbers but disorganized in coordination. Lookouts scan the black horizon. No radar contacts appear. Some ships lack effective sets, others do not fully trust them. Japanese cruisers slip through the night like phantoms. At 1:43, searchlights snap on. Shellfire follows instantly. Australian cruiser HMAS Canberra is torn apart before her guns can fully answer. USS Quincy, USS Vincennes, and USS Astoria burn fiercely, their crews stunned by the precision and speed of the attack. Japanese gunners rely on optics, star shells, and years of disciplined training. They move in formation with silent efficiency. The Americans never see them coming, not until the sky turns white with muzzle flashes. The victory reinforces belief. Back in Tokyo, naval planners review the engagement reports. Radar is mentioned briefly in intelligence summaries. American ships possess sets designated CXAM or SC, but the reports are inconsistent. Range errors, clutter, mechanical failures. One staff officer shrugs. Electronics cannot replace seamanship. The Imperial Japanese Navy had been built on human excellence, superior optics, night exercises, aggressive torpedo doctrine. Radar, by contrast, seems temperamental. Early Japanese sets, such as the Type 21A search radar, proved bulky and unreliable. Surface search capability remains limited. Senior commanders see no urgency. In contrast, inside laboratories at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Radiation Laboratory, engineers are refining microwave radar technology. The SG surface search radar, compact and precise, begins appearing aboard U.S. destroyers and cruisers by mid-1942. Its power lies not just in detection, but in integration. American doctrine begins shifting. Radar information feeds into centralized combat information centers. Plots are updated continuously. Gunnery is adjusted in real time. The Japanese still rely on bridge optics and voice commands carried across open decks. Through mid-1942, Japanese night confidence remains intact. At Tassafaronga in November 1942, Rear Admiral Reizo Tanaka again demonstrates torpedo mastery, crippling multiple American cruisers despite radar contact. But beneath the surface of these engagements, something subtle is changing. American radar operators are gaining experience. They are learning to interpret sea clutter, distinguish ships from rain squalls, anticipate movement beyond sight. Gunnery officers are trusting instruments more than eyes. The darkness that once concealed Japanese approach now glows faintly on American scopes. And while Japanese commanders continue to value discipline and human instinct, they underestimate one thing. Electrons move faster than torpedoes. By late 1942, in the confined waters around Guadalcanal, that difference is about to become lethal. October 11, 1942. Off Cape Esperance, northwest of Guadalcanal. 22:35 hours. A light rain falls across the decks of the American task force. The destroyer USS Fahrenheit cuts through the dark water, her bow slicing cleanly, phosphorescence trailing in her wake. Above the bridge, The SG radar antenna rotates steadily, invisible guardian of the fleet. Rear Admiral Norman Scott stands aboard the cruiser USS San Francisco, peering not into darkness, but into information. Inside the Combat Information Center, a radar operator leans forward. Multiple contacts, sir. Bearing 280. Range 18,000 yards. Closing. Scott does not hesitate. Track them. Confirm formation. The radar sweep returns again. Crisp, unmistakable echoes. Japanese ships, cruisers and destroyers approaching to reinforce Guadalcanal. On the Japanese flagship, Rear Admiral Aritomo Goto's force advances confidently. The plan is familiar. Approach under cover of darkness, bombard Henderson Field, withdraw before dawn. The Americans have been predictable, disorganized. But tonight, they are waiting. 22:55. Scott issues the order, open fire. American cruisers unleash full broadsides into blackness. The first salvos land before Japanese lookouts even identify silhouettes. Shells tear into the cruiser Aoba, smashing her bridge. Admiral Goto is mortally wounded in the opening minutes. Confusion spreads through the Japanese formation. They attempt to locate muzzle flashes, but the Americans are firing by radar plot. They do not need searchlights. They do not need visual confirmation. The night itself has betrayed them. Destroyers attempt evasive maneuvers. Torpedoes launch into suspected American positions, deadly weapons, but fired in uncertainty. Meanwhile, radar operators calmly update ranges. Target turning to port. Range now 12,000. Adjust 2 degrees starboard. Each correction sharpens the storm of steel. By the time Japanese ships regain some situational awareness, damage is severe. Furutaka is fatally hit. Several destroyers are crippled. Though the Americans suffer confusion and friendly fire incidents of their own, something irreversible has happened. Radar has dictated the engagement. Across the Solomon Islands campaign, similar scenes begin repeating. At night, American ships detect first, fire first, and adjust first. Inside the Japanese Navy, frustration grows. Reports mention American accuracy in darkness. Gunnery without visible targeting. Torpedoes avoided by ships that seem to anticipate launch positions. Some officers begin reconsidering radar's importance. But production capacity and doctrine lag behind realization. Japan's industrial base cannot match the rapid deployment of advanced microwave sets appearing on U.S. vessels by 1943. Nor has Japanese command fully restructured tactics around electronic coordination. They still fight as if night belongs to human eyes. The Americans now fight as if night is merely another variable on a glowing screen. By early 1943, in the waters of Iron Bottom Sound, now littered with sunken hulls, the balance of power is shifting decisively. The next confrontation will prove just how deadly that shift has become. November 30th, 1942. Tassafaronga Point, Guadalcanal. 23:06 hours. The sea is restless tonight. A column of Japanese destroyers under Rear Admiral Reizo Tanaka speeds down the slot, their decks stacked with drums of supplies for starving troops ashore. Engines throb in tight formation. Spray lashes across steel hulls. Tanaka knows the Americans are hunting them, but he also trusts his crews. Aboard the heavy cruiser USS Minneapolis, radar operators study their scopes. The SG radar sweeps, painting crisp returns across the Black Pacific. Contact. Multiple fast-moving targets. Bearing 310. Range 7 miles. Rear Admiral Carlton H. Wright orders his cruisers into firing position. The Americans have detection advantage. They have position. They have radar. They open fire first. Orange flashes split the darkness as 8-inch guns roar in unison. Shells streak toward Tanaka's column. One destroyer is hit almost immediately. But this night reveals something critical. Technology is powerful, yet doctrine must adapt with it. Several American commanders, eager to maximize radar-directed gunnery, hold their destroyers back from launching torpedoes. They rely on cruiser firepower, confident in electronic precision. Tanaka reacts instantly. He does not wait for visual confirmation. He orders a massive spread of Type 93 long lance torpedoes into the American formation, guided by instinct, training, and aggressive doctrine. Moments later, the sea erupts. USS Minneapolis shudders violently as a torpedo tears off her bow. USS New Orleans suffers catastrophic damage. USS Pensacola burns. USS Northampton is mortally wounded. Radar had detected the enemy, but it had not replaced tactical caution. The engagement becomes a brutal lesson. Technology alone does not guarantee dominance. Integration, discipline, and tactical evolution are required. Even so, beneath the surface of Tassafaronga's chaos, the strategic trajectory is clear. American radar operators tracked every movement. Engagement timelines were compressed. Reaction speed increased. Though losses are severe, experience compounds rapidly. In subsequent months, American commanders adjust. Destroyers are integrated more aggressively. Torpedo tactics align with radar detection. Communication between CIC and bridge becomes seamless. By mid-1943, the U.S. Navy no longer merely possesses radar. It fights through it. Japanese forces, increasingly strained by supply shortages and industrial limitations, struggle to field comparable systems. Attempts to deploy improved radar sets lag behind American advancements. Training in electronic coordination remains limited. And slowly, the psychological shift takes hold. Japanese captains, once confident in darkness, now hesitate. They wonder, how did the enemy see us? How did they fire so accurately? How did night become their ally? In the waters around Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands, the answer is glowing softly on rotating scopes, invisible to the naked eye, unstoppable once mastered. The coming year will turn that advantage into slaughter. July 5, 1943. Cooler Gulf, north of New Georgia. 1:12 hours. Low clouds press against the jungle-covered ridges of Columbangara. The air is thick, unmoving. The sea is ink-black. Aboard the light cruiser USS Honolulu, the Combat Information Center hums with quiet intensity. Radar scopes glow pale green in the dark compartment. Headphones crackle softly. Surface contacts. Bearing 340. Range 16,000 yards. Multiple returns. Speed high. Rear Admiral Walden L. Ainsworth nods once. Plot continuously. Prepare to engage. Out ahead, Japanese destroyers under Rear Admiral Teru Okiyama slice through the slot at flank speed, carrying reinforcements for embattled troops. Their commanders still believe speed, maneuver, and long-lance torpedoes can compensate for American improvements. But something fundamental has changed. Inside American CICS, radar tracking is no longer experimental. It is routine. Operators calculate course, speed, and bearing shifts with practiced precision. Fire control solutions are fed directly to gun directors. 157. Target range 10,000 yards. Solution steady. Open fire. The American cruisers unleash controlled, radar-directed broadsides. Shell splashes bracket Japanese ships almost instantly. One destroyer is struck repeatedly before its lookouts can even fix the enemy silhouette. Fire blooms across decks. Japanese return fire flashes in brilliant arcs, but their gunners must estimate range visually, adjusting by instinct against an opponent correcting by instrument. Moments later, the destroyer Nizuki is hammered, command structure shattered. The engagement descends into chaos. Torpedoes launched, ships maneuvering violently, but the pattern is undeniable. The Americans detect first, fire first, adjust faster. Even when Japanese torpedoes find their mark, as they still sometimes do, the initiative belongs elsewhere. Weeks later, at the Battle of Columbangara and Vela Gulf, radar-directed ambushes become devastating. American destroyers, using SG radar and coordinated CIC plotting, close silently in darkness and launch torpedoes with lethal surprise. Japanese crews, scanning black horizons through binoculars, suddenly face incoming shells before spotting muzzle flashes. Night, once a shield, becomes exposure. The psychological toll is immense. Japanese after-action reports begin noting the enemy's uncanny ability to locate formations in total darkness. Some officers speculate about superior reconnaissance. Others grudgingly acknowledge radar's expanding role. But acknowledgement cannot equal industrial scale. By late 1943, nearly every major American warship in the Pacific carries advanced surface search radar. Training pipelines produce skilled operators. Doctrine integrates electronics into every tactical layer. The Imperial Navy, strained by losses at Midway, Guadalcanal, and the Solomons, cannot keep pace. And so, in the black waters that once favored Japanese aggression, a reversal crystallizes. American ships move confidently through darkness. Japanese commanders, who once laughed at the crude promise of radar, now fight under its invisible gaze. The slaughter is no longer symmetrical. The night has chosen its master.